Hey, welcome back to the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast. Tomas Keenan here, your host. I'm coming at you guys today with another episode, and I have my integrator, which sounds really weird. The integrator coach has his integrator on the call. And I'm actually excited for this one. So I want to take a quick moment here and welcome Brianne Adams, effectively known as Bree, to the show. And we're going to dive into Bree, a little bit of her story, how she helps entrepreneurs, how she's helping me, how she's helping Step It Up Academy and our clients kind of grow and scale as we really start to ramp things up here in the year of 2023. And without further ado, just welcome up. I'm grateful to have you here.
I'm actually really excited to be here. And 6 months ago, I would not have said that, or I would have said it and been a total fucking liar. So
That's fair. So let's go back in time here a second, because right now we're about to turn what month? We're about to hit April. We're very close to April. So we're in the third month of the year. You and I met in November of 2022. You came to my first Step It Up Academy live event. You sat in the front row, had a VIP seat, and you wound up coaching with me for a couple of months. I kind of want to tell the backstory here a bit too, before we dive into like your backstory, which got you to where you are today.
Yeah.
Just to kind of set the context for people who are listening. So you come to the event. And one of the things that we always do at that event is we talk heavily about the Visionary Integrator, which comes right from the Rocket Fuel and Traction books. I give the link out for the assessment, and I want everyone who comes to that event to take the assessment to see where they are. Are you more naturally a visionary or an integrator? And most of the room usually comes back, and most of the room's usually filled with a bunch of visionaries. It's just the way it is. And here you are sitting in the front row, and you show me your score, and I'm like, okay, I just got out integrated by that one. So, all right, cool. So we see that you're an integrator from day one. You come out a couple weeks later, you start working with me in a one-to-one coaching environment. Things are going great. We hit the next Step It Up Academy live in February, which you spent half your time there, half your time at another event, which is really cool. I supported that as well. And after that event, I got my brain into that theta state, and we've talked about it. And people are going to be like, what's this weirdo talking about here? I have shower thoughts. Okay. And they're not creepy thoughts. So get that dirty shit out of your heads, folks.
Fucking pervs.
And Jim Quick did a podcast episode on this where he talks about it in depth. But shower thoughts, basically what ends up happening is your brain goes into a theta state. And in that theta state, it's almost as if it's a meditative state. It allows your brain to almost get downloads from the universe, right? Or whatever you may believe in. And I get them often, and they hit me really hard when they come. It's almost like it's a jolt to my body. And I'm in the shower one morning, and it's like, oh shit. And I had this crazy ass idea. And it was like, you've got this person who's part of your ecosystem, part of your circle already, who's got a skill set that would be very valuable to the organization. You need to start a conversation. And I think it was literally that day or maybe the day after where I started interacting with you, and it started in the morning. And I don't know, looking back at it now, you probably realize the level of intentionality I was having during that conversation.
Didn't see it then, but I totally see it now.
Yeah. I was asking you some very direct questions for very specific reasons. Right. And it's just the way that I operate too. Right. Like if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it with purpose and intent behind it. So we go through this whole gamut. We go back and forth through this conversation. And I also know you for a while at this time. So this is not a traditional, we'll call it interview process, because there's already an established relationship. We go through all this back and forth stuff. I start asking you, and you and I are very open and transparent just to begin with. It's the way that we just communicate with other humans, and sometimes to a fault.
Well, we have a very small circle of friends.
Yes, that's fine by me too. But we openly shared what matters to us in the form of core values. Right? You shared yours, I shared mine. Okay, cool. There's overlap there. That's what I was looking for. Right? And I knew that already, but I wanted to see it documented. The next step of the puzzle, right, was like, hey, I know you took the Visionary Integrator assessment in February as well, which was the second event. I took it right after that event as well. It's like, I want to see your scores. Tell me what they were again. You told me your scores, and if I recall correctly, you came back a 96 integrator and a 45 visionary.
44.
44, excuse me.
Yeah.
which means that you suck as a visionary.
My integrator went up and my visionary went down since November. But yes,
Yeah.
I'll
And
take
mine did the
it.
inverse. So I went from a 90 integrator down to an 85 integrator. And I think my visionary stayed the same, which was high 70s or 80s, something like that. And that right there is telling me everything I needed to know, because what winds up happening, at least in my experience, I've flip-flopped from visionary to integrator a couple of times in my career already. And oftentimes it's determined upon where I'm sitting or what seat I'm sitting in the organization at that point in time. Right. The last time I sat in the visionary role was when I had my GPS installation company, and I had to, because there's nobody else to sit in that seat. So when I first took the assessment a couple of years ago, I came back a higher visionary than I did an integrator. My last seat, running a different mastermind, same deal. I came back dumb high in the integrator seat because I didn't have to be the visionary in that company. And here we are once again at Step It Up Academy, and it's like, oh shit, I can't do both. Someone's got to sit at the top seat and kind of, set the direction of the company. And since I've been doing that since July of 2022, I've had to somewhat step out of that integrator role because like things just don't function without it. Right? It's just a harsh reality. You need both in a company in order to operate or in order to be successful, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So we go through all this. We're having these conversations back and forth. We're kind of sizing each other up, more so me sizing you up than you realized. Then we dive into DISC assessments, right? And for those of you who don't know, it's a personality assessment. I said, hey, here's a link. Take this test. Folks, by the way, the DISC assessment's usually about a 15 to 20 minute thing to get done. I think Bree had it back to me in about 7 minutes.
I know exactly who I am at work.
So what I did from there, and this is really important for anyone who's sitting in a visionary or integrator role, even if you're a solopreneur and you're looking for that executive assistant or an assistant or a support person to come work next to you or side by side, you want the inverse of your personality type in that seat next to you. And that was the data I was looking for. Right? I knew what my gut told me, but I needed the data behind it. And you and I are both data-driven people because that's what integrators do. So I look at the data, and the nerd in me goes right over to Google Sheets, and I did an overlay of both of our DISC assessments, and I put it into a chart. And I looked at the chart and almost fell off the chair. I was like, "Come on, this can't be. Like it's almost too perfect."
Yeah.
And I sent it over to you, I think probably later that day or the next day or whatever. But our conversation progressed. We talked a little bit back and forth, and as well as we know each other. And I will let you talk here in a moment, I promise. As well as we know each other, I wanted to always keep things open, honest, transparent, and above board. And I think that means a lot to me personally, but I think it means a lot to you as well.
Absolutely.
So going into this business agreement that you and I both have, we structured it like a traditional business agreement. It's like, hey, there's a contract. This is what I'm going to do. This is what you're going to do. And this is what the compensation is going to look like. This is when we can talk about changing that. And I want the people who are listening to this to understand the importance of it. Like, stop basing shit off of your feelings.
No, fuck your feelings.
And dive into the data.
Me the numbers.
Fuck your feelings. Yep. You got to fuck your feelings. Look at the data, but also go and protect yourself with legal. I don't care how much in love with the person you are, or how warm and fuzzy the feeling may be in the front end. Shit's always good when you start off.
Well, yeah.
It's 7-8 months down the road, 7-8 years down the road when shit goes sideways that you pray to God or you wish to God that you had that contract in place. It's just a harsh reality. So, but here we are.
Yeah.
How many weeks are we in at this point? Because it's probably over a month or just about a month.
We're right at 4 weeks.
Awesome. Yeah, so right at 4 weeks, the amount of crap that you've gotten done, changed, implemented since day one has just been mind-blowing in my opinion, because, and I talked about this in the last podcast that I put out, I got to a point here now that my bandwidth it was just stretched out too much. I can't integrate as well as coach 20-something plus clients and run an operation at the same point in time and manage other people on the team. And I got the systems and processes to a point where they were functional. However, I'm a firm believer, and I know you are too, I'm a firm believer that no matter what the system or process is, no matter what the business is, no matter what level you're at physically or financially, there's always room for improvement. And that's really what I got you for. So
You know, it's funny that you say that because I
Yeah.
was looking at my ClickUp list today and I was like, why haven't I closed more tasks?
Mhm.
I'm like mad going, I should totally have gotten more done by now.
Yeah, but if you look at the list of shit that you did,
I mean, it's a great list and there's some hardcore shit in it, but like I look at it and it's not that I ever think that I'm not doing a good enough job. It's that I always there is something inside me. I am innately striving to do more.
mm,
And it's I don't need more. I don't want to be better because I'm really fucking good at what I do. And for me, November's when I learned that, right? Like I have this awesome story that got me to where I am that I will never ever ever wish to change anything for. But I realized at that event in November that I'm really fucking good at what I do.
yeah.
And I just always want to do more. I want to go faster, I want to run harder, I want to correct it all.
All right. So you just kicked open the door.
All right.
How the hell did you get to that point in your life? Like, what's the backstory here? Like, what happened in the past that got you to where you are? You didn't just magically wake up one day with the skill set that you have.
Mm-mm.
You had to go and learn it from others. You had to go and implement it and hit the bumps in the road in order to learn it. But also in the doing of it, you had to eventually get your confidence boosted enough where you could say, "Yeah, I do know what I'm doing, and here I am. I'm showing up, and I'm giving it my all every day." So, what was like the beginning that made all of this shit come together?
So, truly beginning story. I
Mhm.
spent 10 years on active duty in the Marine Corps, signals intelligence analyst, did a lot of counter intel stuff, had an incredible career, could not have imagined ever doing anything else. And my husband and I were deploying at the same time, and we have kids that are getting ready to start school. Like, it was a big deal. We were in the same unit, and they told us that we wouldn't ever have to go again at the same time. We don't want somebody else raising our kids anymore. Like, so it was like a okay, we have this agreement. We're both super fucking badass at what we do.
Mhm.
And January of 2013, they're like, nope, we're gonna send you guys again. I was like, the fuck you are. Like, and it was it that was exactly how it happened. Like,
Mhm.
I still get super bitter because I had an incredible career as a Marine.
Yeah.
There was this one specific master guns. He's like, well, you're gonna go or you're gonna get a bad discharge. And I was like, hold my fucking beer.
Mhm.
And I pushed it so hard up the chain. I ended up getting like even as a hardship discharge so I could get out because I didn't want my kids to be raised by somebody else. Almost unheard of. I got an honorable discharge, got to keep all of my benefits and sat face to face with the sergeant major of the Marine Corps who's like, "Dude, why are you going to do this?" And I'm like, "Well, here's why.
Mhm.
Because your policies and your procedures, they suck balls. The needs of the Marine Corps are ultimately all you care about and I really don't fucking care anymore."
Mhm.
Because I got a kid that's going into kindergarten. I got a 4 year old right behind her. This is what's important to me. And he appreciated our candid conversation so much that I sat with the commandant of the Marine Corps that same trip when they were on their West Coast tour.
Mhm.
And they signed my papers and gave me an honorable discharge. And I was out like 6 days later.
Wow.
And then I'm like, well, what the fuck do I do now?
Yeah, it's got to be a hell of a transition right there. Because here you are, 10 years in the Marine Corps, and then all of a sudden, 6 days later, you're a civilian.
Yeah. Not only just like 10 years, it's like the first time in my life I ever felt like I belonged anywhere.
Mm.
Like I found my people there. I mattered because of what I did and also I didn't matter because the whole fucking thing ran without me, right? Like it's the place where you find like you were really really important and also you're not fucking important at all. But like those were my people and I'm sure there was like some connection because they drank like fish, I drank like a fish. They were just, you know, I was one of the guys. It was easy, right? It was hard because for so long I knew exactly what I was doing when I woke up. I knew what I had to weigh, I knew what I had to wear to work, I knew how fast I had to run, I knew when I was going on deployment, I knew what was expected of me, and then I wake up one day and I'm just a mom.
Mm.
And that it probably took me like 8 or 9 years to be okay with that. To be okay with not being a mom, like I love my kids. I wouldn't trade them for the world, but with not being a Marine and that not being part of my identity.
Mhm.
Like I know people say like, and it is a big thing in the Marine Corps, once a Marine, always a Marine. Yes. And also fucking no.
Mhm.
Like when you're not, you're just not anymore. And I had no idea what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I stay at home mommed, did that gig
Mhm.
for the fucking birds. Like you have got to be the most badass woman on the fucking planet to stay at home and raise your kids.
Yep.
Don't, I will like at me, fight me because stay at home moms are the baddest bitches around and stay at home dads too.
Yeah.
And I knew really, really quickly it wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
Had no desire.
So what'd you do?
Oh, the shorter question is, what didn't I do?
Mm-hmm.
I went to school and got a nursing degree
Mm-hmm.
and never freaking did anything really with it. And then I started going to school to get a psychology degree because I'm like, oh, I don't want to be a nurse. Maybe I want to be a psychologist. And I I really hated school.
Mm.
So in 2012, we moved back to California. So California, when I got out,
Yeah.
went home, lived with my parents,
Yeah.
did a bunch of shady ratchet shit that I shouldn't have done, but I was just trying to like cope with losing every bit of my identity. Back in California in 2011, and was like, I gotta get a job. I can't stay home with these fucking kids anymore. Like, and they're starting to get older, and I still didn't want to do it. And I had a friend who worked at a company called Prana. So at the time, you know, Prana and Lululemon right there with each other. It's a high end lifestyle apparel company. Now it's like evolved into this entire brand. But I got a job answering phones for $16 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And taking that gig, even when Dan's like, I can't believe you're going to do this. You have this resume, you have all this education, you have all this experience. I was like, fuck you, I'm answering phones.
Yeah.
And it's how I found out what I'm good at and what I wanted to be when I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't answer phones very long.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've worked with me a little bit, so you
Yeah.
know I didn't answer phones very long. I very quickly, within like 3 or 4 weeks, got promoted to be the executive assistant to the CEO. And at the time, he is what laid the foundation for what corporate life was supposed to look like for me,
Mhm.
right? Like, and when I say corporate, you could line up everybody at Prana from the janitor to the CEO, and you wouldn't be able to fucking differentiate. Like, you couldn't pick them out of the crowd unless you knew who they were. Like, we all dressed the same. We did. I mean, it just was that kind of place. Bring your dogs to work. We have a kitchen. We keep it stocked. Everybody's fucking important.
Mhm.
Like, that's where I learned how I knew what I thought that it was supposed to be like.
Yeah.
Because I mean, also at the same time, you don't know what you don't know.
Mhm.
And also you don't know that you don't know what you don't know. So even a step further.
Yeah.
And then 4 or 5 weeks after that, I took on the entire executive team, and then I started running the building, and then I took over project management to build out stores, and then I was the retail and wholesale support coordinator, and then I figured out I'm really fucking good at this like paperwork stuff,
Mhm.
which is all I called it. People are like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, paperwork.
Yeah.
Travel, I build stores, I keep retail and wholesale operations up and running, but I do paperwork.
Mhm. Yeah. That's you simplified it for yourself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's evolved.
Of course it has. So how long were you there?
Until 2016,
Yeah.
we moved back to North Carolina. I had some like crazy ass health stuff that happened then. So I was actually at work
Mhm.
at the end of 2014. I fell down some stairs, broke my back in 4 places, and had the craziest. And they were so awesome. Like, you hear these workers' comp stories.
Mhm.
I didn't have one of those. I didn't. They took care of me like from the day that they picked me up off the floor when I fell and took me to the ER. I never had an issue after
Yeah.
that. Like, except for my own ignorance, because I'm like, I'm not having back surgery. I went from running triathlons, I was super fit, really healthy, to not being able to walk.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to have surgery. And then finally I had to. So I had one, it failed. I had
Mhm.
another one, and they nipped my cerebral spinal sac. So that was a fucking nightmare, and had to have a third emergency surgery.
Yeah.
And then I finally get back to work. Like, that all happens at Christmas of 2013. 2014, I go through this whole process. I'm back at work in the summertime. I'm back full time by September. And January of the next year, I collapse, have no feeling from my waist down. Can't walk, can't move my legs, can't anything. So I ended up having a full on anterior spinal fusion. So now I'm just RoboCop on the spine. But you know, they told me even then that I would never lift a gallon of milk again. And when you're telling a CrossFit athlete and a
Mhm.
triathlete these things, I potentially could have just eaten it and been like, fuck this.
Yeah.
I mean, there were for sure times, and you're gonna have to trigger warning this, that I would like stare at the ceiling laying in bed going, I could just suck start a 9 mil and it'll all be fucking over and I'll be okay, because I won't have to have nothing anymore,
Right.
because I was alive and I could do nothing and I couldn't go to work and I couldn't take care of my kids. Like, it sucked balls.
Yeah.
And then I went to the doctor, because so this is the coolest part, is I was in California when all this happened, and where medical marijuana has been legal for a really, really long time.
Sure.
And I'm allergic to morphine and almost every derivative of an opiate.
Mhm.
So instead
You
of
don't have
them
a choice.
prescribing me drugs, Yeah, I didn't have a fucking choice.
Yeah.
So this person that just never really enjoyed doing drugs, it saved my life.
Mm.
It's I will never, you will if I hear somebody ever say that marijuana is a drug, I will fucking fight them in the street. It is the most pure medicine on the planet. Like
Yeah.
it saves lives. And if they would prescribe marijuana to more people, we would have less opiate addictions too.
Hmm.
But that's, that's probably for another podcast. So
Hmm. We can go into that rabbit hole for a very long
yeah.
time.
We ended up leaving California and we went to North Carolina,
Hmm.
and I was back home with my kids, and not able to smoke pot anymore,
Hmm.
not able to obtain weed at all, because now I'm in the Bible Belt
Yeah.
where, you can't even drink wine like 4 days a week. And I didn't know what the fuck to do.
Hmm.
And I was sitting at a stoplight. We lived in Hampstead. So I was sitting at a stoplight. Like I could have turned right to go home, and then grocery stores on the left. And I'm sitting at the stoplight going, and I shit you not, I'm going to cry saying this. And I'm like, God, I really hope somebody fucking T-bones me, because I cannot fucking live like this anymore.
Mm.
And I looked to the right, and this big red garage door opened up on this building, like literally lifted it at the exact time. And it was this brand new CrossFit gym.
Mm.
So I busted a bitch and I pulled in the parking lot and I said, I need help.
Mm.
I probably wouldn't be alive today.
Yeah.
Like that's how dark my life was.
Hmm.
And I walked in that gym. I said, listen, I can't do anything. And I've had all these surgeries, and they told me I would never lift a gallon of milk again. And I had this awesome trainer. Her name was Shelby, that she spent like probably 6 or 7 months with me, just teaching me how to move my body.
Hmm.
I never picked up a weight. I never went to a class, just teaching me how to bend at the waist and bend at the knees, and like actually carry my own body weight. And then
Yeah.
we moved on, we progressed to PVC pipes, and then I was lifting weights, and then I was going to classes. And anytime I hear somebody talk shit about CrossFit, I'm like, dude, you don't even know. It's like
Yeah.
that shit saved my life. And I know that part of it's the people, but just that whole functional piece of teaching me how to do those things that people said I would never do again,
Yeah.
and not accepting that that was the thing.
Hmm. Yep.
So the day I was sitting there at a stoplight wishing somebody would hit me and kill me, like that
Mhm.
door opened, and it was over after that.
Yep. A little pivot right there. Huh? Yeah, I get it. So what was, so you were a CrossFit athlete prior to that. What was the level, like how active were you with CrossFit, with your time there? Was it, to the point where you were lifting heavy? Were you like, what did that look like?
I'm like stupid strong.
Okay.
Like even now, overweight and not fit, I could still probably out deadlift or outlift a lot of people in the gym, just because I spent so much time learning how to move my body.
Hmm.
It's not about, how big you are, how strong you are. It's, do you know what to do with your joints and your muscles at the exact time that you need to?
Yeah.
I was pretty competitive, like locally. I was in the gym 6, sometimes 7 days a week, and I was constantly, I took my kids, like I walked into a gym with my daughter and she does busts out pull-ups. It took me a fucking year to do. And I'm like, okay, seriously.
Hmm.
I did dabble in some Olympic weightlifting because I wanted to compete, and I just at least one time, right,
Hmm.
and just do it, and actually competed at my meet and came home with a total, like scored both lifts. So that was pretty rad. I loved it. I loved my gym. I loved my community. Some of the best friends that I have,
Hmm.
I met at that gym, and that was what, like 8-10 years ago,
Yeah.
and they're still some of my best friends to this day.
Hmm. That's awesome. All right. So what's next? CrossFit comes in, literally saves your life.
Yep.
You're moving your body again. You're feeling better. You're still in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
What's next?
Then my dad got cancer.
Mm.
So, which I know, a lot of people's parents get cancer, but my dad adopted me and my sisters and then raised us as their own. I was 9 when I got the last name Molyneux, which is my maiden name.
Mhm.
I remember it really, really vividly. And he truly is like the greatest human being I had ever known in my entire life. Like if you're religious, not even religious, because I think religion's bullshit, but if you have a relationship with God, like in any kind of way, or, you know, you grow up knowing that Jesus is this man that walked the earth that loved everyone. And he didn't love you because you had money. He loved you because you didn't have money. And he didn't love you because you were perfect. He loved you because you weren't perfect. Like that was my dad.
Mm.
didn't raise his voice. I think my dad smacked me in the mouth one time, and I'm pretty sure I called him a liar
You
when it
probably
happened. But
deserved
other
it.
than that, like he was just, yeah, absolute. I deserved so much more than that. But like my dad was one of those people, no matter what you do, you can't fucking set him off.
Mm.
And that just makes people like me even madder because I'm like, why can't I get him to react? So he was just the only man in my life that had never broken my heart.
Mm.
That is the only way that I know how to explain this relationship that I have with my dad.
Yeah.
And he, right after my marriage ended, like literally the 25th, Dan and I decided we were getting separated. We're going to end it. The 31st, I get a call that they're taking my dad to the ER. And this is 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, don't really know what to do. 3 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call. They're like, come home. So I jump in my car from Hampstead, North Carolina, drive to Indiana. I get there at like 2 o'clock on February the 1st, and they just drop it. My dad's got cancer, and they don't really know what kind, and they don't know how bad it is, and we're going to all figure it out. And I really didn't go home other than to, go get my daughter ready for her junior prom and just a couple things. I stayed in Indiana. Like Dan stayed with the kids and just like picked up all the mom shit, like rocked being a dad and taking care of the house, and didn't go on any deployments, didn't take any work trips, just so I could be at home with my dad. And I stayed in Indiana. And 116 days after he got diagnosed with cancer, he died.
Mm.
And I still hadn't hit rock bottom yet.
Yeah.
So, I was selling insurance. I was doing pretty well. I really, really enjoyed it because it was something different every day. I was on the road. I basically lived in my car, which, I don't know why people think that's cool, but I really did think it was cool at the time. Like I just get in and go and do what I want to do and then go home. And I got invited to this event in November in Vegas. And by invited, I mean the lady that I was doing freelance admin work for said, I bought you this ticket. And if you don't go to this event, you don't have a job when I come home on Monday. And I'm like, well, so I bought a fucking plane ticket in Spirit because I had no cash, no nothing,
Yeah.
And I went to this event, and I'm just going to talk about the parts if it comes back to it. I ended up working for that organization.
So this is the event you went to. You started working for that organization.
Yes.
So how the fuck did they say, "Oh, I want that one"?
Fuck if I know. I know that in January, so I was supposed to graduate my program with my pod in February. So in January, I reach out, I'm like, hey, can I get some more of these score books? Because, we kept score every day. Like we do the same 10 tasks, we keep score, we compare it just so we can compare ourselves to how shitty we are based on how other people performed, which is not, I'm sure, what its intentions are, but that's exactly what it does when you pit people against each other based on a score. I reach out and ask for some of these books, and the leader of the organization says, well, how about a coach's shirt? And I was like, I'm not a coach. They're like, no, seriously. You can come coach, you can learn how to do this, you can train all these things. And also, I need an assistant. I need to get organized. I can't get this shit together. I want to grow this thing and I don't know how to do it. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. At the time, like full transparency, when I went to that event in November and signed on to do the 90 days of coaching after, I told them, I'm like, I don't have the fucking money to do this.
Yeah.
Just got fucking divorced. My dad died. I've got kids to take care of. They're like, nope, we'll figure it out. You do this thing and we'll figure it out. So that was part of the allure, I guess, for him to offer me the job. He's like, okay, so this is what I'm going to pay you. I'm going to pay you $30 an hour, and 15 of it's going to go towards paying off your debt. And then the other part, well, joke was on him because then fucking Corona happened. I'm working around the clock trying to get these online programs. I learned ClickFunnels. If there was something that I didn't know how to do, I didn't ask somebody to teach me. I stayed up all fucking night teaching myself. Like zero chance I'm going to show up and be like, can you teach me how to do this?
Yeah.
I don't ask a question that one, I don't know the answer to, or that I haven't tried to find out on my own for a solid, 3 hours. Like I'm going to figure
I'm smiling because I'm very familiar. I do the same shit. Like if I ask you a question, chances are I probably already know the answer.
Yep. Which is one of my favorite things about you. So I'm like, there's no shadow when you're walking around. Like you say what you mean and you mean what you say, right? Which is exactly the opposite of the kind of relationship that I have with the owner of this other organization. because like you get so there's so Wizard of Ozzy, like you know that there's a man behind the screen, but you're so fucking traumatized and in it you don't actually know that there's a man behind the screen, and you think this is great and I'm gonna have this. So pandemic happens, we're working around the clock to get this men's program and this women's program online, free to the world. And it just so happened that I knew a lady that was selling PPE. So I just made a super smart connection, ended up getting a portion of what she sold, turned around and paid off my program, got completely out of debt, like paid off all the money that I was working to pay off, right? So then there's like no reason to not pay me. And this was March, April. And then I was still so in it without ever having gotten a paycheck. I picked up my kids and moved them to Texas to work for these people, still having never gotten a paycheck.
Yeah.
I'm a fucking dumbass. Like zero chance I can blame that on somebody else. Anyway, I didn't even, I knew that I was good at what I did, but I didn't even know what I was capable of until I got thrown into that. And not only was I running one organization, I was running two, completely behind the scenes. Like no one knew that it was me, because you know the men's and women's are completely separate. So the women knew I was in it, but they didn't know I was running it. The men didn't even know that I was in it, and I was still fucking running it. And just got to the point where I woke up, I guess, and I'm not even mad about it anymore.
Because you needed to go through it.
Yeah. And because I realize now that, you know, none of that shit happened to me. I chose to stay. Even when I knew it was fucked up and something was wrong, I still stayed. And I didn't know until later why I stayed, but I know that there are reasons for it. And I wouldn't be sitting here now. I mean, I wouldn't have had the balls to go get the last job that I had running a fucking company that was actually successful and made money if I hadn't gone through that. That was like the balls to even apply for the job and ask for the salary that I asked for and then got, and then just rocked the shit out of. And the best thing that I learned between those two experiences is the 18 months that it took me to walk away from the really shitty first one. It only took me 3 months the second time. I was like, ooh, red flag, red flag. Why is this a red flag? How am I contributing to it? What can I do about it?
Yeah.
And I gave notice and quit my job in October. And then I found you guys in November. Wow. It's not a coincidence that I found you either.
No.
Because I met Adam inside of all of this. He was one of the coaches at the event.
Just to give context, Bree's talking about Adam Smith, who's a dear friend of ours. And anyone's been to any of my Step It Up Academy live events, Adam's always there speaking. He's the other giant human in the room that I feel small next to. And that's not very often. I feel small next to other people. So, yeah, thanks, Adam, for making the connection.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like we were just chit-chatting one day and I was like, man, he's like, what the fuck are you actually doing? That's what he sends me on Instagram. I was like, that's a really good question. I don't know. And I was like, well, this is what I want to do. And he's like, you ever heard of Tomas Keenan? I was like, matter of fact, I just started following him. He's like, okay. Then I got your event thing. I was like, Jen, we got to go do this. VIP tickets, front row. And it was like, you were doing what I knew that I wanted to do, except for the coaching piece, right? Like I'm like that, like sneaky mentor. I'm still in this place where I'm like, I don't really know how to like level my talking to reach a big audience. Like I will never have a high visionary score, which means I will always say fuck a lot and hurt people's feelings. Like that is the easiest way to explain me. But it has a really, really important piece. Like it's the cog in my wheel. Like it's the reason that I am the way that I am. And it's the reason that I can operate the way that I operate.
Sure.
But you know, yeah, he's like, you heard of this guy? And then we met you and then you started coaching me and I was like, yeah, I can fucking do this. I'm really good at this.
Yeah, for sure. No, that you are, you've got a ton of experience and obviously, you've done some cool shit. You've got some serious training. To me, it's like, yeah, you've gone and done a lot of that too, but part of me is very curious to know, and you may not even know the answer. And you and I have kind of talked about this as well. One of the regrets that I have in life is actually not serving, right? Because at that young age, like I really needed the structure and I'm pretty sure that I would have gotten it there. But, you spent 10 years in the Marine Corps at a very high level, right? And that structure that was indoctrinated into you, you were trained upon, that you lived for that, decade, has to have come out and stuck with you to some extent, even though you say you're not a Marine anymore.
Yeah, I actually think it's like embedded in my DNA now, right? Like while I created a lot of drama in my childhood, I grew up in a pretty affluent house. Like even when I was with my grandparents, like I had a good dad, I had a stable home. Like my mom sucked balls and she was horrifically abusive, but the best thing that she ever did was leave, right? Like and my dad was still, he provided this stable home. I had an incredible stepmom. My grandparents were fucking awesome. And I went to private school and I did whatever the fuck I wanted to do. Like I had no structure. If you get arrested, don't fucking call me because I'm not bailing you out. My dad was like the most prominent attorney in the town. Like my dad was super, super successful, but the attorney that does things the right way, like Scott, does things the right way for the right reasons. My dad was fucking rad, but his rule was if you get in trouble, don't fucking drop my name and don't call me.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, there wasn't a lot of structure. There was a ton of love and not a lot of rules.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have that. Like I went to the Marine Corps and I remember my mom, because she was like mom of the year my whole life. She's like, what are you going to do when they get in your face? You're not going to be able to handle that. And she was probably really right. Like no one had ever gotten in my face and walked away without a black eye. Like, and it's when I learned to really like start keeping my mouth shut and that maybe I didn't have to admit that someone else knew better, but I was comfortable saying, I don't know everything. And then that structure and that regiment, I think it really, I don't know that it changed who I was. I think it actually showed me who I was.
Yeah, it's like you became self-aware.
Yeah. And it really was like, I became so aware of like what my gifts were, what I was good at, what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it just at that time, early 20s, whatever. But I knew that when I got up in the morning, I wanted to be the fastest girl, probably the fastest girl of all the boys. I wanted to be the strongest. I didn't want anybody to ever look at me and be like, she got that because she was pretty. Like I learned how to actually like show up and be a fucking badass from the Marine Corps.
Okay, that's awesome. So I ask you a question here. It has to do with like today and moving forward.
Yeah.
You spent 4 weeks now, like really behind the scenes of my organization, Step It Up Academy. And like, obviously, all the clients are here because you've been a paying client for months at this point. You knew people, you provided value and gave back to them, helped them with things.
Yep.
But what excites you most about what we got going on and where we're going as a company?
What excites me the most about it is there's no smoke screen here. I know that I said that earlier. Like this is very much what you see is what you get and what you get out is what you put in, right? And there's never this promise that, oh, if you come to this thing, we're going to 10x your business. It's if you come to this thing, we're going to give you an opportunity to show up and do some fucking work. And if you do some fucking work, then maybe you're going to succeed and then maybe you're going to figure out what doesn't work. But regardless, you're going to keep growing. So I think the thing that I'm most excited about being able to be your integrator is freeing you up to help more people like me that think that I'm just going to coast through and I'll figure it out when I get there. Like I knew what I wanted to do when I came into that event in November, but I had no idea why I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
I had no idea how I was going to do it. And I didn't know who I wanted to do it for or with.
Yeah.
Like, I know I want to go run a mile. If I don't have those other fucking 3 things, then it doesn't matter what I want to do. So being able to give you your hands and your brain space back to vision what that is, I'm fucking pumped about that.
That's awesome. I'm excited for it too. So you mentioned a couple of things. You came into the event in November and you didn't have clarity in a couple areas. Did you walk out of the event with clarity, or did that clarity come from some of the stuff you learned at the event that you implemented weeks later?
Okay, so a little bit of both. I'd never sat down at a table and tried to write my core values on a piece of paper. Like, I know who I am as a person. I know the things that are important to me, but I did not understand until that event how important it was to know how you want to do business and who you want to do business with, and how those are not hard questions to answer if you know what your business is about. So going through that core values exercise there was awesome, but I didn't hone my core values in for 6 or 8 weeks after that because they kept kind of changing until they didn't change anymore. Like the general overarching theme was the same, but knowing, like, finding the right word is really fucking important. Knowing exactly what that word means is even more important than finding out, because a lot of people use integrity as a core value. But what's that mean to you? It's like saying, I want to be happy. Well, what the fuck does happy mean? Happy for one person could be, Jello wrestling in a fucking bikini with Pamela Anderson. And happy for another person is walking 26 stray dogs. Like, it doesn't fucking matter if you don't know what that is for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So kind of both. I knew, and then also I figured
Yeah.
it out really hardcore and concrete.
I think that's a good approach too. And it's one of those things where I tell people quite often, like, don't rush into it. Like, yeah, you're gonna have to do the work, and we can get the baseline established very quickly.
Mm.
However, like, go sleep on this. Like, don't go and have the graphic design work and put the shit in a wall the day after you write this stuff down on a piece of paper. Actually go think about it, assess it, sleep on it, read them again a couple days from now. Let some things transpire in your life. Try them out in a business or a personal situation, and see if they still apply.
It's like not having premarital sex. Like, what if you don't? If you don't, you can come out of a thing and say, these are my core values. And then people that don't know you, when you change them, are like, you're a fucking liar.
Yeah.
Because that's not what you said. So it's like tea. You just want to steep it a little bit, take the bag out, make sure it's what you want. Like, you can't rush into it. You can't. It's too important. It matters too much, because that's what people are going to remember about you. They're going to remember the first thing you said, and they're going to remember the first thing you did.
It's pretty funny to me. It's not even funny. It's just the facts. And Chris Whitehead talks about this often too. And core values are very important, right? Those who have actually done the work and established them correctly and actually leverage and utilize them in their daily lives are the ones speaking from the mountaintops, preaching to others how fucking important they are.
Yeah.
The ones who are either not open to it or too fucking lazy to go and do the work, or that's some woo-woo bullshit, doesn't make a difference. Those are the ones who are the naysayers.
Yeah.
And those are the ones who are running around like fucking chickens with their heads cut off and are not getting out of life what they truly want.
Yeah. 100% agree. And it's not because life's not standing there saying, hey, here it is, you can have it if you want it. It's because you cannot, like, there's that saying that people say, well, you can't get where you're going until you know where you are. Well, you can't know how you're going to get there until you know who you are. Are you the runner? Are you the swimmer? Are you the walker? Are you the, let me call the fucking Uber? I mean, and it's okay if you are those things, but if you don't know who you are, you will never get where you're going, because you won't ever be able to figure out where you want to go.
Yeah.
It'll change all the time. You'll be like, no, I just have all these ideas. Well, because you don't know who the fuck you are.
So there's 3 key components that we work on at Step It Up Academy live events, and you're aware of them. And each of these 3 components help you figure out who the fuck you are, right? First one you mentioned is core values. We talked about the visionary integrator assessment, right? And the other one is if you start using a hiring platform like WiseHire, DISC assessments are tied into that. Go find out and take this assessment and get the baseline of what you are, what you believe in, how you operate as a person, and look at what the data tells you. Because I'm sure you've gone in and nerded out, because I know I do. You probably got that DISC assessment back. You downloaded the PDF, and it's like 35 or 40 something pages long. And you start reading through this, and your eyeballs want to pop right here, like, oh my fucking God, how do they know this about me? I just answered 20 questions.
Yeah.
And it's mind-boggling in my opinion, but it's really important that people know that stuff about themselves.
Well, you learn something too, right? Like, I thought truly that I knew what I was good at. And okay, so here's the thing. I'm one of those people that when I walk into a room, you only know I'm there if I want you to know I'm there, right? Like, I'm super outgoing when I'm around people that I know. And also I'm really introverted when I'm around people that I don't know. Like, I can gauge how much I want you to learn about me based on, like, reading a room. So with these, people have always said, like, I'm too much, I'm too loud, I'm too this, I'm too that. Like, there are 2 personality assessments that I've taken in my life that have explained me to myself in a way that I never thought I would understand. And one of them's the DISC. I'm like, it fucking makes sense why I do that. This is why I stand back until I know. And this is why once I know, I'm all fucking in. Like, if I know you, like you, and trust you, you are never fucking getting rid of me. And once you push me to a point that you are, fuck you, you're dead to me.
Yep. It's one of the reasons we get along.
Yeah. It not only, like, teaches you, especially the DISC, like, about yourself, it also tells you how you can interact better with other people. That's fucking huge too.
Yeah. From a company perspective, one of the things that I like is for more so a managerial, right? Like you have everyone on your team take a disc assessment and you're like, oh shit, I got to go get on, Joe Smith's ass because he's not doing what he's supposed to do. From a managerial perspective, you can go look at that disc assessment before you go in and have that tough conversation with him. And it's going to suggest which methodology or how you approach the situation with that person.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to say, hey, if you have to deliver bad news, you may want to do it this way.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a hint. And if you do it with that approach and you take the advice that DISC has given you, which is pretty balls accurate, by the way, usually, you're going to have a much better interaction, even though it may not be a great conversation to have with that person. So I'm a big fan.
But they'll receive it. They'll receive it in that way because you already know what their communication style is and what the reception style is. And if you're willing to deliver it that way, they're going to get it no matter what. So it's not as painful as we might think it is.
I agree. So I want to pivot here quickly and touch on something. You and I are working on a project right now for a client. We are leveraging the WiseHire platform, and like we both just love WiseHire. It's just gangster. But this is something that we don't advertise, we don't market about it, we don't tell anybody about it whatsoever. But it's one of those things where the client came to us and said, hey, I need help with, are you willing or can you do X, Y, and Z? And I had the conversation with the dude and I'm like, yeah, we do that. And long story short, he wants us to go find an integrator for his highly successful companies. Okay. Yeah, we could do that. Yeah. We got 2 badass integrators in our team right now. We're pretty good at picking out our own, right? And that's exactly what we're doing for this guy. And we had a couple of preliminary calls. We said, hey, what are you looking for? What's the ideal client? What kind of tasks and roles are you looking to get off your plate? We put together a package or a game plan, we'll call it. And I don't know, I haven't even looked today, but when I looked yesterday, we had close to 150 applicants for this position.
164.
Okay, so we're 164 as of today, which is crazy. So we're helping this gentleman fill a very important role to his company, but we're literally doing the heavy lifting, the front end of it for him. And then the way the process is going to work is like, hey, here's 3 to 5 really solid candidates, but you've got to go and do the final interview and choose the right one who's best for you. We'll be here to consult you on what we believe is the best one, but at some point in time, we got to hand the reins over to him. What do you think about that? What do you think about that project? How do you think it's going? And how do you think we can help more people with those kinds of services?
I think it's going really, really well. So believe it or not, I found a lot of confidence in myself that like, I'm a pretty confident person, but I'm finding confidence in my ability to like interpret other people's data and really look for red flags, which is not a bad thing. I always, when I'm looking to hire somebody, and I have experience hiring people, I'm always trying to get you to disqualify yourself because I don't want to waste fucking 36 seconds on you if you don't know the difference between there, and there, and you can't speak in a conversation. So I'm always looking for like, I want you to fuck yourself over so that I can push you aside and start digging, like saving time for the right people. I think it's going really, really well. It's easy to find yourself, right? Like when I go into it, every time I'm looking at that dashboard, I'm like, I'm looking for me for this client. I'm looking for you for this client. And knowing what his personality is, knowing how, the culture of his company, those are all huge things to take into it. But I'm looking for, if I was going to go work for this person, I'm looking for that.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think it's a cool opportunity.
Do you know what the best part is, though? Is it's not emotional for us.
No, it's not.
Like, him hiring is going to be emotional for his company because it's that's his fucking baby. He's grown it from the ground up. Yeah. We get to take all the emotion out of it. We get to take all of the hard decisions, the hard pieces, and just give him the best of the best so that when he does make that emotional decision on who he wants to be his integrator, we've already done the hard stuff.
Yeah. So I want to give some secret sauce here to the people who are listening. And one of the other reasons why I've taken this project on, this is practice for us. Because this is something that we're going to need to do. And you and I talked about it yesterday, the day before. You've got a plan in place already in your own mind. You vocalize it, which I appreciate. Yep. But this is something that we're going to need to do in our own organization because it's, and you know this well, but it's super important to continually work your way out of a role or position. You got to find people to backfill what you're doing so you can continue to elevate and do higher level, more important shit.
Yeah.
So to me, this is just a practice round where we go and we get to do this. We get to run this game plan. We get to fine tune the SOPs or the process for ourselves. Oh, and by the way, we get paid to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, that works. Let's go.
Give me the dollars.
Yeah, give me the bag.
Because money's important.
It is. It is. It is. It really is. Well, look, we're at just about an hour here. I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate you sharing more of your story because I didn't know all of that, by the way. I know there's more to it, but we got plenty more of these we can drop into and record.
Yep.
I just appreciate you. I appreciate what you've done so far. I appreciate the work ethic, the amount of ridiculous hours that you've put into this, the perspective that you've given me. And I think that this is something like we're just scratching the surface here, in my opinion.
Dude, just getting started is the understatement of the fucking year. Yeah.
I'm super excited for it. Really am.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. Like, I know, like, it's just validation. Like, when the all caps, the integrator sees the integrator in you, you're like, you know what? I'm fucking throwing grenades behind me. Like, fuck all this shit. Let's go that way.
I love it.
So I'm really excited about what we're about to do.
I appreciate you.
Thanks, Thomas.
You're welcome. All right, folks. That's it. We're wrapping this one up for today. If you guys like this, you got any value from this, do me a favor, head over to the Apples and leave a 5-star review. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and follow Bree, follow myself. You can find us on the Instagrams and the Facebooks. Bree, what's your handle on Instagram?
At the Chaos Maestro.
Love it. It fits so perfectly. All right. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast. Make sure you head over to stepitupentrepreneur.com and make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Step It Up Entrepreneur Podcast.